Hello everybody. I'm going to be working on the to-do list API. The reason I'm working on this now is because I've been working on the to-do app, to-do list app for the Quasar Getting Started guide, and I'm reaching a point where actually we're just about to start using this API. So there's a couple of things I wanted to clean up first before I started moving on. And the first thing is when we're building the API, when we're building the to-do list app, I want to be able to create to-dos without having to have lists, without having to have projects, anything like that. I just want to be able to straight out create a to-do. And so I'm going to jump into this, into the to-dos migration and take a look in here. And at the moment, since it's constrained to a to-do list, I actually can't, I can't make it on its own. So what I'm going to do is change that to nullable. I think that's all I'll have to do. So then we can say something like art db wipe, migrate the database, and hopefully that will work. And now I've opened up Postman, and we go to test to-dos, and we try and create one. Wait, this is in lists. No, it's on to-dos. Let's have a look at what we've got here. We've got a label. I'm getting internal error. All right, so that looks like something a little bit deeper. I think this is what the URL is. Let's check that in our browser, see if that's going to work for us. Oh, weird. I'm getting, of course, sudo service nginx start. I need to start nginx because that's what I'm using to serve up my server. And we're also going to have to say sudo service mysql start as well. Give that a moment to start. And there we go. I'm hoping that that will fix the problem. And let's try this again to create a to-do. And that works. So now the to-do list ID can be null, so we can easily just create a to-do list on its own. Now the other thing is we're probably going to have relationship endpoints as well. So rather than just having, for example, the to-dos endpoint, we might want to have related endpoints. Actually, I don't know if that'll even be necessary. Would you? I guess, you could have stuff where you say users and then to-dos, but usually I just do it directly and then pass through. I guess like to-do list / to-dos could be an endpoint. Nah, I think that's it. Wow, this is going to be super short. I think that's literally all I had to do. So let's say git add dot, git commit message, a to-do does not need a to-do list. And there we go. We can go ahead and push that. And that should work for us now. And so the next thing I have to do is go into production. So I have to find my production server and just hook in there, wipe the database and migrate it again. I don't bother rolling back and all that because this data is constantly deleted as it goes anyway, so that totally doesn't matter. So we got a API quasarcast.com, I think is where it is. Oh, hang on. It's probably sitting, we'll go to the Quasarcast server. Here we go. And then if we jump down here to api.quasarcast.com, now I can find the server's IP address. And what I might do is I might actually create a hotkey here. If I go into my aliases, I've got a alias that shows me my aliases. I want to have an alias. So let's say alias SSH into my Quasarcast. So let's say SSH Quasarcast, and that's going to be equal to SSH forge at that address. And that's safe for me to do because, I mean, you guys can see that IP. It's safe because the SSH key sits on my computer. So now what I should be able to do is jump out of that and jump back into it. And let's say SSH Quasarcast and see if that works for me. Looks like it is working. So now I've just got a faster way to get into my server. There we go. I've protected my key further with a password. Yeah, so now I can jump into, I think it's like to-do API. Yeah, there it is. Go there, and let's just say art and see what happens there. Damn it, I don't get the artisan command alias by default. So I have to say PHP artisan. Yep, that's working. And then we're going to say db wipe. Yes, I really want to wipe it. And then I'm going to say db migrate or just art migrate. To migrate the database, yes. And now we can give that a test on production. So if I come in here and we say .com and we try to get all of our to-dos, that's one that I must have created at some point earlier. Yep, with the to-do list ID. Oh wait, that's a post request I just made. So let's make it a get request now. Save that, and it looks like it is working. So on production, that's now working. I just wanted to be able to show people how to do this in a production. What was I saying? I want to be able to build the app showing the to-dos first. In fact, let's go ahead and actually start building this out now. And I'll show you where I'm up to in the series at the moment. So if we cd into Quasar to do, open that in Visual Studio Code. And now we're going to be jumping into Quasar code. And let's say Quasar dev there. And we can jump out of that. And then once this is loaded up, once my dev server's loaded up, we can then like give this a test. And there we go. Okay, so in the last video that I recorded, let's just say git status here, just to make sure I did commit my last one. Yes, I can freely make changes. In the last one I recorded, I basically took all the components and turned them into, I basically pulled everything out and put it into separate components. And so now in the next video, I'm going to make it so that when you click on these buttons, it does stuff on the back end. So basically the next video is going to be on Vuex. And I figured this is probably going to be the most complicated video of all of them. And what I'll do is I'll open up Postman and I'll teach them how to use my API first. And then once they know how to use the API, I will show them how to implement that API using Quasar. So the person doesn't have to pull in anything for the API. They just use my API that's freely available on the web. So this says blog API. That's because this was going to be a blog and I decided on a to-do list. So let's say to-do-API, save that, and then I'm just going to delete a bunch of these. And what we might do is we want to probably abstract the URL into a variable. So let's say API underscore endpoint. That's probably a good way to name it. And that's going to take you to do-api.quasarcast.com. By the way, anyone who's joined in, feel free to say hi. And I'll add a slash in there like that. Yeah, cool. And it also means for my testing purposes, I can go ahead and change that to, I can change the current value to .test. But when I'm teaching this, I'll be like, okay, so you jump into environment, and within our default environment, we have an API endpoint variable. And we're going to set that to the Quasar casts to do API endpoint. And now let's have a play around with this API. First, we'll create a collection, and we're just going to do to-dos in this video. So let's say to-do. We don't have to do any authentication. It's basically going to identify you using a cookie, which is really cool because it means you can use the API without having to do any authentication, any login logic or anything like that. I basically handle that for you on the back end. And by the way, keep in mind that this API is not very private. It's purely for testing purposes, so don't put any private data in your to-do list. This is just for playing around and testing purposes. Hello, Prashant. Good to see you. Okay, so we've got these are going to be our to-do endpoints, and let's add a new request in there. And this request is going to be to create a to-do. And then what we can do is actually use that variable that we created before and say API underscore URL, like so. Why is that coming up red? What's going on there? API, let's try this, API URL. Pretty sure that's how you do it. I might have to do a little bit more digging into figuring out. Oh, okay, so for the environment, we have to actually set an environment. So I've got to remember that when I'm doing this, I'm naming it as well. And we'll call this default environment. So rename default environment. And there we go. So then we make sure we choose the default environment so that we have this API endpoint available to us. So now if we jump into that create endpoint and we do this, API endpoint, there it is there. And then we can say, oh, we probably do want the slash in there. So let's remove the slash from here. Because when we're building the endpoint, we probably want to add the slash ourselves. Yeah, I think I want to do that. So injected into there is going to be the variable we had here in our API endpoint, in our global environment variables. And then when we come in here, we can then say slash to-dos. And that's going to do a GET request to our API slash to-dos. So let's send that through. We should get all of our to-dos. Now, this might come up empty for you because you probably haven't created any to-dos yet, whereas I created some in the past. And now if I come in here and I make a post request to to-dos, we can start giving it some data as well. So for example, we can set the label of this to-do equal to go shopping or something like that. So let's go ahead and create that. And there we go. We've just created a new to-do and the label of it is equal to go shopping. Now don't worry about this to-do list ID being equal to null. Later on, we're going to make it so that a to-do can actually belong to a list so that we can have a list menu on the left side of our application and that we can use that to then categorize all of our to-dos. But for now, we're just going to have this to-dos. We're just going to be playing with the to-dos endpoint. So that's how we use the API to create something. Let's come in here and add a couple of others. So if we go to collections, we've got our create endpoint, and we can say that. That all looks good. I'll copy this, create a new endpoint, and we're going to call this the get endpoint. This is to get all of, how about we do the index one first? So the index endpoint. And so if we go to slash to-dos and it's a get request, then it's just going to fetch us all of the to-dos that we created. So let's send that through, and there we go. That's all the to-dos that we have created. Let's add another one in here. So if we say add request, how about a get request? And this one will go to the endpoint to-do slash, and then the ID of a to-do. So for example, if I go to index here, the ID of this to-do is equal to 3. So now if I come back to get, and we say to-do slash 3, that's going to fetch me an ID, a to-do with the ID of 3. And if you already understand APIs, then this is probably all very obvious to you. And there we go. We can now fetch specific to-dos. The last one that we might actually want to use in this video is deleting a to-do. So let's add another one here for delete. That's going to be a delete request. There it is there. And once again, API endpoint slash to-dos, we'll have to give it the ID of the to-do that we want to delete. So let's make it 3 in this scenario. And that's it. It's literally that simple. If we say delete, then it's going to go ahead and delete that to-do. So we get it back, but if I try and delete that again, it's not going to work because we don't get a result for that to-do. That error is interesting. No query results for model. I'm surprised that they actually tell me the name of the model as well as a default setting. Anyway, another thing I might actually do before I do this series though is give some better reporting on that. So how about we actually jump out of here? I'm happy with that. That's all I think that's all I'll do with the video. The next video is just going to be me teaching them how to use the API with Postman. So basically running through everything I just showed you then. So that'll be that video. We can jump out of this now. And how about we go to back into the folder of that project. So the to-dos project. Set into Quasar cast. And we go, and then our to-do API and open that in code. And I want to be able to create an Orion request. So let's just come back in here and say Laravel Orion. And what it allows you to do is have a request object as well for your endpoints. Not responses. It'll be under security because this is where we basically add all of our validation. Yeah, here we go. So let's just copy that. That's an example of a request. And I think we can say PHP artisan make request. And how about we have one for to do? So to do request. Do we already have that? No, we didn't. So let's check that out now. To do request, and I'm going to replace all of that with the Orion request model. And so this is going to be called to do request. And now we can put in some of the rules here. So if we jump back into the create underscore, I might even just say control 2 here, create underscore to do's table, what have we got here? So some of the stuff that's going to be required, by the way, that should probably be hidden. Maybe not hidden, but why have we got an ID and a UUID? I don't know where I was going with that. Why would I have that? That makes no sense. Wouldn't you do something like table UUID? Oh, that's really weird. Hello, Dastin from Germany. Cool, people from all over the world. I'm just trying to figure out why I would do that. Why would I have a string set to UUID rather than just having a UUID object? And this might actually be a mistake. I might have accidentally written that wrong. So let's jump into our migrations and see what we've done for some of these others. That's got an ID. That's got an ID. Is that the one we were just looking at? No, that's the users table. ID. Yeah, man, I might have been really tired when I wrote this code. This is just bizarre. UUID. Okay, so I'm going to leave it for now, but that's going to be sitting at the back of my mind. This seems like very redundant. Why would you have a blank string that's not even set properly when you've got an ID at the top there? So anyway, let's jump out of that for now and let's go back to what we were originally focusing on, which is the to-dos. So let's jump into that to-dos table. Scroll down a bit here. And we're going to want the label to be required. So we'll say label is required. And how about we say a minimum of 3? You probably don't want it. You'll probably want it to be at least 3 there. What else have we got? Whether or not it's complete, that doesn't matter. And I want to have the to-do list as well. What have we got? Store rules here. They'll probably all sit in common rules. So what I might do is just leave that as empty for now. This is a cool thing about Orion. You can have common rules and store rules because usually your store rules are always going to be the same as your update rules. But update can often have like a couple of extra rules. This is a really common thing. So I love the way that this has been designed. So we've got a label there. This is going to be to-do underscore list underscore ID. And there's a way that you can say on Laravel that that needs to reference a table. So let's look that up. This should be able to reference a table, which is the to-do list table. Validation. But I also want it to be nullable. So hopefully that's not going to be too difficult. Can we do that here? Let's just see. Nullable. Yeah, there we go. So I should be able to say nullable. But if we do have that value, then where's the rules? There's like a rules table somewhere here. I wish that was oh, here we go. Wish it was easier to find this in the docs, but that's okay. Laravel docs are great, so I don't see why I'm complaining. There's something about finding something in the database. So it's not there under database. Maybe under, here we go, exists. So we want to see if something exists in the database. So we want to see if to-do list ID must exist in a given database. So the column option is not specified, which is this one here. The field name will be used. So in this case, the rule will validate that the states data table contains a record with a state column. So it's saying this table it's not really what I want, is it? Man, I actually always get confused by this validation. Specify the database column that should be used by the validation rule. Yeah, okay, this is more what we're looking for. Instead of specifying the table. All right, so let's use this as kind of a starting point. I'll copy that. So basically we want to say the to-do underscore list underscore ID, which is being created here, needs to exist. So that to-do list needs to exist. And by the way, this is nullable. Make sure I don't forget that. On app models to-do list as the ID. I like writing it this way. This is a little bit more verbose, but that makes it very clear to me what's actually happening here. So now I should be able to create one with a to-do list, but I should not be able to create one with a to-do list ID that is a dud ID. So let's try that. We're going to open up Postman. And I need to remember this because this pattern comes up a lot in my life where I want to validate that the ID on that thing actually exists on the thing that you're trying to put it on. So if this works, cool, got a new update. Thank you, Postman. I don't know why I'm getting conflicts here. So what I should be able to do, I should be able to go to our default environment here and change that value as for the current value equal to test. And now this should allow me to test it on my test environment. Let's see if that works. Send an indexed request to that. And is there a way of seeing where the actual request came from? I don't know. It's actually not that obvious, is it? If I hover over here, though, it'll tell me current value is .test, so that should be correct. Now, let's create a new to-do with a very random to-do list ID that should basically not work. So we've got a label. That should work because it should be nullable. And let's just say like my label or something like that. So that works. But if I say to-do underscore list underscore ID and I set it to something wild, that should definitely not work. The given data, the selected to-do list ID is invalid. Fantastic. But if a list exists, then it should work. So let's go ahead and add another one here called to-do list. Whoops, what have I done? Come back up here. And we'll add a request in there, and we'll just have a create request. Quickly just whack this out. API endpoints / to-do underscore lists. And what does a list have to have? I can't even remember. So let's just start with a label and let the errors lead us in the right direction. My list. Save that and see what we end up with. Okay, so that worked. And this has an ID of 1. So now I should not be able to do that because it's a random ID. But if the ID is equal to 1, so a list that does exist, it should work. And it did. Fantastic. So that validation is working exactly as it should. Now, let's go back to this to-do list and start adding validation to it as well. So we've got label, color. The label should definitely be required. So let's see what happens if we don't have a label in there. We get an exception. However, that exception is on the database level. I want to actually handle that request properly. So this was some lazy coding that I did in the past. So let's make a request for to-do list request. Orion's automatically going to pick that up because of the way that I've typed it in there, which is fantastic. Let's just copy this and say to-do list request, whack that in there, and then change this to to-do list request. And now let's come over here and say to-do underscore list, just to view what's on the table for a to-do list. And what have we got here? So really the only thing is the label, and basically we have that same situation with the project, making sure that the project actually exists. So this actually is good. We've got a bit of the code already. So if we have a project underscore ID, it's going to be nullable, and we need to make sure that the project exists so that we can reference it. And you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and remove these UUIDs because they just don't make sense. Actually, no, there was a reason I wanted to do that. I think I wanted you to be able to set the UUID yourself on the front end. And by allowing you to set that yourself on the front end, you could have better optimistic loading. I think it has something to do with that. Because, yeah, it's good because then you can create the list on the front end with the UUID, Whereas you can't actually do that if it's not a UUID. You have to wait to get the response set back because you can't set an ID manually, but you can set a UUID manually. That's why I would have done this. But that's just going to have to be for another day. So sit that at the back of my head. Really, I should be noting this somewhere on like a to-do list, which is ironic because we're building a to-do list app. So let's say to-do.md, and I'll say implement use of UID instead of ID. That's going to have to be done before I actually finish building out this series. So I might even do it at the end of this video once I've done some of these validation rules. All right, so project ID, that should be set up properly, and even the label is set up properly, so I actually don't even have to change anything else on that. So let's jump into our project, our to-do list, and try creating a to-do list that's got a label equal to nothing, so the same as what we had before. Nice, the label field is required, so that area is a little bit nicer now. Which hosting service you are using? I use Laravel Forge because it's specifically designed for hosting Laravel projects, and it is just ridiculously simple to set up. Yeah, so that's what I use on the back end. And I'll be using down the line, once Quasarcast goes live and I start making money through the website, I'm going to move it to Laravel Vapor. And the reason I'll move it to Vapor is because I want it to be fast all over the world. And using Vapor, that solves the problem of having multiple databases and having them in sync and having them all being fast. So my problem at the moment is I could be using an edge server. I could be using edge servers all over the world. Doesn't change the speed of my website because it's so data heavy. Because, all my courses are going to be based on data. I'm not using a static site generator and I don't really want to. And so it's going to be important for me to have maybe 3 or 4 databases around the world that are in sync so that if you are in France, you're going to get a fast request because you're going to hit an edge server in France and then it'll hit a database in France. But if you're over in Australia or somewhere around Australia like Indonesia, then if you'll hit one of the edge servers in Indonesia or Australia or wherever, and you'll hit a server that's in Singapore, which will be in sync with the server that is in France. So my plan is to move to Laravel Vapor, but at the moment I'm using Laravel Forge, which is absolutely wonderful. I love Forge. It's what we use at work as well, and it just makes it super easy to host Laravel projects. So, moving on. By the way, no one's paying me to say any of this. I just love the stuff. I feel like I need to say that. I don't know why everybody says it, so I do too. And your video will be on YouTube or you will host on streaming server. My videos will end up on Vimeo. So at the moment, I'm hosting them on YouTube. So if you go to quasarcast.com and you view the courses there, because this is actually already live. It's ironic because it's really slow for me because my server's in Paris and I'm way away from Paris, but a lot of the people that view my site are within the Paris vicinity, at least relatively close to Paris. So that's why the server's over there. It's kind of funny that it runs slowly for me, but fast for most other people. Yeah, so at the moment, these are my courses. And if you jump into, for example, the Quasar component series, I then use YouTube there. So these are all YouTube videos showing up. But to fetch the data of, like on the back end data, which is all of these videos, individual videos and the courses, when you click on the courses page, that's all handled on my servers. Where is the option to post question on Quasarcast? There isn't one yet. If you want to ask me a question, the best thing to do is through Discord. So there's my Discord. I think I've already talked to you before on Discord, Prashant. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure we did chat at some point. But yeah, the best way to contact me is on Discord. I'll probably end up doing my own forum as well, and I'll record the whole process for building that forums because I imagine there's going to be a ton of people that want to build a forum with Quasar. It is a perfect technology for building a forum, so that's probably going to happen. And then I can explore SSR. But I PM you. Yeah, so we don't really have anything public at the moment, unless you go on like the Discord channel and talk to things. Talk about things publicly on the Discord channel. But yeah, we do probably need like a central place. Also, if you want to do forum related stuff, Oh, you did? I'm usually really good at replying. Hang on, I'm just going to give that a second to load. I don't have any new messages. Oh, wait, there you are there. Oh, cool. Oh, I don't know how I missed this. Abacus, sorry, I forgot to mention. Oh my goodness, I love abacus beads. Oh, this is really cool. So this allows you to do, I'm guessing this allows you to do like addition, multiplication, subtraction using in the style of using an abacus bead. Abacus beads. Man, that is really cool. And so this will ask you questions. Oh, nice. And there's a little timer that like tracks you as well. Just try addition one. Okay. Let's say integer. 2-digit. Wait, what am I supposed to do? Wait, where's the question itself? Does that mean I put in -19? Sorry, I actually don't understand abacus beads very well. But this is awesome. This is like really beautiful, beautifully laid out. The reason that I love abacus beads is I used to play piano. And what I used to do is I actually made my own abacus beads. Actually, maybe I can get the camera going here and actually show you this because this is really cool. I've got it hanging on my wall at the moment. Have I got my Logitech camera set up? Yep, there I am. Hello, everybody. Check this out. So, this is what I used to use to practice piano. What I do is I put it all over to one side like this. It's not like a traditional abacus. And the idea was every time I practiced a section and I played it correctly from memory, I'd move one across like that. And then I'd play it again from memory, move it across, play it again from memory. And once I played it from memory 3 times, I'd then move on to the next section. And so I'd cut my piece up into smaller pieces. And then I keep memorizing each section. And I do that every single day. And I found that after I did that for a couple of weeks, I could memorize an entire piece. So even if it was a complicated piece, if I just broke it up into smaller sections and I diligently just did each section like this every single day, I could learn pieces really, really quickly. So it's a really useful way to memorize and review things really, really efficiently. So you could even do it with memorizing something about code. I guess it doesn't really apply that much to code, but it's the idea that revision is super underrated. And if you can get super structured about revision, you can learn pieces super, super fast. So yeah, I think that's really cool. But thank you for showing me that, Prashant. Like, I think it's beautifully done. Register, and there's a registration page. Wow. Oh, hang on. Let me get this off me. But anyway, I better get back to what I was working on. And I'm sorry I didn't reply to you about that. This is that's not good of me. I should really reply to people straight away, because if I look at it and then I come back later on, then the notification's gone and then I don't cover it. So I feel like it's a good habit to get into to make sure that I reply to things instantly. So I do apologize for that. And I'll sort of try to be more diligent in the future. All right, so let's jump out of here. What was I working on? Goodness, I've got to bring my brain back into it now. All right, so we wanted to make sure that a to-do list could not belong to a project if it wanted to. That's why we've got nullable. But if it does belong to a project, that project has to actually exist. So really it makes sense for me to start doing the validation rules for the project first. So let's come in here and say, make a request for a project request. Oh, my phone's going off. I just need to check that because it might be my girlfriend. She needs me to pick me up at some point. Oh no, I might have to leave now. Sorry, guys. I'm ready to be picked up. Ah! Okay, let's quickly do the project request, and then I've really got to go pick up my girlfriend. So thank you for sticking around though. So that's the project request, but we want to copy the code from here, whack it in there, change that to a project request, projects table. I'm just going to sort of move fast now. We just want to make sure that it has got a name. And I've made that unique to the UUID, but really it should just be unique to the ID because we haven't implemented this yet. So now I can come in here. At project ID, we don't have to worry about that. It does have to be a label, and it has to be at least 3 long. And I wonder if we can have a unique policy in Laravel. So let's come in here, and let's say, what's this called? Validation. Unique, and there should be a database version of unique. I think this might be it here. We got unique there. I need the actual documentation for it. All right, here we go. Unique, but on a database level. So unique, the name of the model, and then the name of the field that needs to be unique. Can I do a combination of fields though? Come in the database, forcing a unique rule to be unique. Oh man, that's kind of ugly. I'm not sure I want to do it that way. All right, I'll have to do this later on, I think. Because basically I want to make it unique by multiple fields because it's got to be unique by the name and the ID. Whereas in here, this is just doing it by one column unless you dig a little bit deeper. So you can say rule unique. And then I'd have to go deeper in there. So you may specify, for example, as crew. All right, so maybe we can just go ahead and do that. Label. So can we turn that into an array? What's the best way to do this? Oh gosh, I don't even know, to be honest. I'd have to dig a little bit deeper into the docs. But let's just try that for now. We'll change this to label. We need to actually import the rule. No, I've imported the wrong rule. We want to use the Laravel validation rule. Here we go. And this is going to be on the projects table where the name is equal to, but then I need to know the name. So how do I know that? Where do I get the data of the value that was actually sent, of the values that were actually sent through? Oh, that's how I add multiple rules. Data. So I do get the data in there. If I say validate and make, oh man. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna have to dig into this later on. I really gotta go pick up my girlfriend. Thank you everybody for watching. I'll probably pick this up in like an hour or so. When I come back, I'll pick up where I left off. I want to make sure that this API works really well. It's a nice stellar experience. And I'm probably going to open source the code as well. In fact, I see no reason that I wouldn't, except for the fact that it's sitting in a mono repo at the moment. But I think it's actually got its own Git repository, Git status. Yeah, it is sitting in its own Git repository. So what I might do then is jump into GitHub, just in case some of you want to take a look at this. Just in case there's stuff I'm not allowed to show, I'll jump into my repositories in the bottom screen. Even though I'm sure it's totally fine. Here we go, the to-do API for Quasar cast. If you want to check out this code, you totally can. Once I make it public. How do I make it public? I feel like this is something I should know. Manage access. That seems, yes, that's my password, I'm sure. Oh, it's already a public. This repository is public and visible to anyone. There you go. So if I jump back into there, let's copy and paste that in there. And if anybody wants to take a look at that code, then yeah, feel free to do it. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Got to go pick up my girlfriend. I'll be back online doing some more streaming later. Yeah, I appreciate your attention. And if you like my this kind of thing, my stuff, my teaching material, and if you want something that's like a little bit more clean, because these, obviously live streaming is usually me just sort of doing my day-to-day side project work. But if you want to actually see something that's a bit cleaner, then check out quasarcast.com. You want to go to /register so you can register an account there, because there's going to be a lot of new perks for registered accounts coming out soon. And then you'll have access to all of my videos through that website. And you can also view all the podcasts, the Quasar show, which is going to be changing soon to a bunch of mini shows, but you can see all of the episodes of the Quasar show that we currently have sitting on there. The podcast, you can see what we currently have out and what's going to be available. So these 2 podcasts are coming soon, and I'm thinking about doing another one, which is going to be Quasar entrepreneurs. So I want to find a couple of entrepreneurs in the Quasar world, and we can do a podcast where we have a chat, help motivate each other, kind of inspired by the Entre Programmers podcast, which is a podcast I really love. And if you want to learn a little bit more about my story, you can click on the stories section there. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll probably see you later on today in a couple of hours or so. Got to go pick up my girlfriend, but love you guys. Thanks for watching.